welcome back to the Building Your Brand podcast. I'm back with another solo episode. This is part of my summer series. I think we're on to episode 4 now, which is exciting. And I've had a little upgrade. I recently invested in a new microphone, which I'm very excited about. I think it's called Rode PodMic. I'll link to it in the show notes. But so far, I'm really happy with it. I'm hoping that this is going to improve my audio. Now, I promised in the last episode that I would come back with an episode all about brand values. So that is what we are going to be talking about today. Now, brand values is a funny one because I think often it's something that we don't really think about, but we do have them, whether we've thought about them or not. So as individuals, as people, we have values. Often we don't really define what those values are, but we do have them. And they are often passed down to us, maybe from our parents, from key people in our lives. And, if we were forced to think about it, we could probably identify and articulate what those values are. Now, I actually think that it is so beneficial to write down and articulate those values in your brand as well, because it can really help you to steer your brand in the right direction. It helps you make better decisions, and it also helps you, I think, maintain your integrity in your business. Because if you've got really clear on what those brand values are, they're almost like boundaries that you can set yourself, lines that you can draw that you're not willing to cross. Now, you might be listening to this and you might have done an exercise and worked out your brand values, and you might be thinking, yep, Liz, I am totally clear on my brand values, which is amazing. Or you might be listening to this and think, oh my goodness, I've never even thought about this. Where do I even start? So I am going to sort of talk you through an exercise that you can do so you can work out what your brand values are. It's super, super simple, take you not very long time at all. But also I asked people on Instagram if they would share with me examples of when they have sort of upheld their brand values and the impact that had on them and on their business. And honestly, it was so encouraging to read all of those messages. So thank you if you got in touch with me and you shared a story with me. I'm going to share some of those anonymously because I think it's just really helpful to have very specific examples. I'm going to try and give some of my examples again anonymously. And hopefully all of that will just help you get a lot clearer on how you feel about your business, what your brand values are, and sort of where you might draw the line. And hopefully it might sort of help you avoid some sticky situations in the future. Okay, first up, I thought I would share my brand values with you. Then I'm going to give you the exercise to work out your own brand values, and then I'm going to share the stories from other business owners. So my brand values: generosity is one of them. And the way I think this manifests itself in my business is, I guess, the way that I share information, the way that I teach. I hope this comes across that I want to be really generous with all of that. And I think this is one of the reasons that the podcast is really aligned for me, because this is a free resource that people can access, that they can learn from. And I always feel so encouraged when people do take the time to message me and tell me how the podcast has impacted them and their business. So that's one of the reasons that I love doing the podcast, because it's so aligned with my brand value of generosity. Another one is integrity. This one I think I've only articulated in this way in recent times, but I've realized there's been a lot of situations that have frustrated me when running a business, or there's been sort of things that I've seen other people do, and I've realized that the reason it bugs me or the reason it doesn't feel right to me is because it feels out of integrity. I think a good example of integrity, and maybe like a value that goes very closely alongside this one, is honesty. So for me, for example, if a brand contacts me and I just could never imagine using the tool or the thing that they want me to promote, that would feel out of integrity for me. I would find it really hard to promote that. I'm open to exploring a completely new to me tool, and if I think it'll be valuable to other small business owners and I try it and I like it, then I'll share it. So it's not like it has to be something that I'm already using, but if it's just something that I actively don't like or would never use, then it would feel really out of integrity for me to promote that. So that's one example for that value. Another big one for me is fun. I really want to enjoy the work that I do. I mean, I do enjoy the work that I do, but I really want to have fun with my business. You know, I think hopefully this comes across, like I do find lots of ways to make things fun, whether it's like making silly reels with my friend Hannah, or, you know, trying different things out, being experimental, playing around with different content styles. So yeah, fun is a big one for me. The next one is collaboration. And I think this one really shows up in how I work with my clients. So I really like to work in a collaborative way with them. And I've kind of set up my whole branding process to make that possible. It's definitely not I go away and do it all and come back and just tell you this is how it is. There's lots of like check-in points, lots of feedback from the client. And I think often their feedback makes the final project even better than it would have been. Obviously I give, you know, my professional opinion, and sometimes like I might push back on an idea or a suggestion, because obviously, you know, like I have knowledge that they won't have about branding and design, but on the most part, the collaborative process with my clients works really well, and I really love that. And then the fifth one, this one's a bit vague, but I think creativity. And what I mean by that is just exploring new ways to do things. I think not getting stagnant, not sort of getting comfortable and complacent, but, you know, pushing myself. So whether that is like the rejection challenge, like that felt really creative to me. Making content feels really creative to me. So I think working on all different formats, different mediums, expressing my creativity in different ways. And I want that to come into everything that I do, not just the branding work that I do for clients. So yeah, creativity is a big one for me as well. So those are mine. Now, if you want to try and work out what your brand values are, this is like an exercise that I like to do. And I would definitely recommend that you do this semi-regularly, because I do think that your values might change over time as you run your business. So maybe check in every 6 months, or maybe check in, you know, like if you do a CEO day, I know some people call it, or if you have a team and you have like an annual meeting where you sort of think about the year ahead, that could be a good time to explore it. But I would definitely check in regularly. They don't have to be this static thing that never change. And as you change as a person and your personal values change, you know, your brand values are probably going to change as well. And another note to say is that if you are building a personal brand, then your personal values are probably going to be very, very aligned with your brand values. So what I want you to do is get a bit of paper, set yourself a timer, maybe for like 5 minutes. And I just want you to write down as many words as possible of things that are important for your business. So it could be sustainability, it could be you know, some of the ones that I've mentioned: collaboration, fun, honesty, integrity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share a PDF document I have that has a whole list of potential brand values, but I would definitely recommend not looking at that until you've had a think yourself. So just write down loads of words, things that are important to you in your business. Try not to filter yourself at all. Like, no one's going to see this. Don't worry about it being right or perfect, or you not being sure if that is what you actually think. Just get it down. You know, maybe it's sharing about politics. Maybe it's using your business to make an impact in a particular area. Okay, those are just some ideas. So set your timer. 5 minutes is actually quite a long time to do this. So when you feel like you can't come up with any more, just try and push yourself a little bit further to come up with a few more words, and get that page absolutely full as you can. Get as many words down there as possible. Okay, once you've done that, I want you to have a good sit and look at that bit of paper, and I want you to try and select 5 or 6 that are like the most important. Get rid of those ones that you're like, oh, actually, I'm not that bothered about that. You know, like, yeah, it's important, but it's not that important. Try and come up with your 5 to 6 most important things on that bit of paper and sit with them for a while. How do they feel? How do you think those words impact how you run your business? Do they feel aligned with how you're running your business at the moment? Is there some things that you want to tweak about your business having looked at these words? So just sort of, mull them over. Maybe leave it a couple of days, just sort of sit with them in your brain, see how you feel about them. And then that's kind of it. That is kind of working out what your brand values are. It's not this like big dark art or anything. It's literally just narrowing down what some of the core things that are most important to you and your business are. And then once you've done that and you've settled on your brand values, and don't forget, as I mentioned, they might change over time and that's totally fine. But once you've settled on them, you can start to think how you can communicate those brand values in different ways through your business. So it might be how you communicate with your clients. It might be through content that you make online. It might be like what projects you take on, like this podcast. You know, if generosity is one of yours, how is that generosity going to manifest itself in your business? What are you going to do to support other business owners or your clients or other people? You know, how is that generosity going to manifest itself? So yeah, start thinking about how those values are going to impact your business or are already impacting your business. And you can just explicitly share those values. So it might be that you share an email to your newsletter or you do a social media post where you're like, hey, these are my values. This is what I'm working towards in my business. I might not do it perfectly, but these are sort of my goals for showing up in the world. Or it might be that you don't explicitly say them anywhere, but you really work on how can you communicate those words through everything that you do, almost to the point where you could ask someone and be like, hey, what do you think my values are? And there's a good chance that they would choose some of the words from that list. So there we go. I would love to hear what your brand values are. So if you do this exercise, come send me a message, let me know, drop me an email, send me a DM. I want to hear what your values are because I always find it really, really interesting to see what business owners are drawn to. And now I want to share with you some of the examples that some people very kindly shared with me on social media. And honestly, it was such a humbling and encouraging few days of getting these stories through over DM because it just made me realize that there are so many small business out there who are turning down clients, who are standing up for themselves, who are educating other people and really sticking with their values. And I was just so in awe of their integrity. It was really inspiring for me. So some of the examples were a fellow designer was working with a client and basically the client was being really cagey about where that they had sourced some images from. And this designer, one of their brand values was honesty. And the way that that showed up in their business was if they made a mistake or had done something wrong, it was really important to them that they were honest with their client and they owned up to the mistake. They weren't trying to fudge it. They weren't trying to blame it on anyone else. That was really important to them that they were honest, but it also worked the other way. So when their client was being really cagey about where they got an image from, I think it was a stock image, that really didn't sit right with them because the client wasn't being honest and was trying to mislead that designer. So they ended up firing the client and not working with them because they just didn't trust that they were going to be honest with them. And that was a really important brand value. So they ended up turning down work. There was actually lots of examples like this where people had turned down work because the clients or the potential clients' values didn't align with theirs. There was another example of a big brand deal. I think it was worth 15K. So that is a significant amount of money, and due to some sort of political stuff that they shared from this brand, the designer knew that they weren't a good fit for them and they really sort of stuck to their values and what was important to them from a politics perspective. And so they actually turned down the brand project. And like I said, that's a huge amount of money, but it was really important to them to stick to their values. I had a really similar experience recently where I turned down a sizable brand project. So it wasn't quite 15K, but it was 4K, which again, that's a significant amount of money for me. But I found out something about the brand that just didn't align with my values. So I decided that I didn't want to work with them. So yeah, that was hard. And sometimes that's really scary as a freelancer when you worry about where your next project's going to come from or your next client's going to come from. To walk away from a significant amount of money can be really difficult. But, once I did it, I felt really relieved because it wasn't aligned with my values. I had another brilliant example actually of someone who a couple wanted to hire him and he chatted to the couple before the project and was really put off by how the husband spoke to his wife and how disrespectful he was. And that was an immediate red flag for him. It didn't fit with his values. And so he actually decided not to do the project. And again, turning down like a really sizable amount of money because that was something that was really important to him. And yeah, that like did not align with his values and how he wanted to show up in the world. So I hope those examples are helpful just to see how other people are really living out their values. I hope it encourages you as well that there are small business owners out there who are turning down a lot of money to stand up for what they believe in. As I said, I would love to hear what your brand values are if you're willing to share them with me. I think I'm going to create some more social media content around this topic because I think it's really interesting. As always, come let me know what you think. I'm at Liz M. Mosley on Instagram and I'm at Building Your Brand Podcast as well. Drop me a DM, let me know what you thought. And thank you for those people who have let me know that they're enjoying the solo episodes. Honestly, this is a little bit out of my comfort zone because I do predominantly do interviews. So just sitting here and chatting on my own is quite a different experience for me. But I'm getting into it. 4th episode in. Hopefully things will just keep getting better and better as I go along. So I will be back with another episode next week and I hope you tune in. And I still have a few sort of topic slots free. So if you have any ideas of things that you would like me to cover, then just let me know.